when I was a kid, my mom used to come in my bedroom in the middle of the day, and I'd be laying in my bed with my hands behind my head, and she's like, "What are you thinking about?" And I'd be like, "I'm thinking about basketball moves. I'm thinking about moves on the court." I've always been a visual person, and so now it's like the majority of my thoughts outside of the well-being of my kids and my wife is my golf swing and shallowing the club and turning the hips. It's like it's ridiculous.
JJ, thank you so much for coming on the pod, man, and taking the time. We really appreciate it. This is obviously your very busy time of year. The NBA going full force. Also, you can still probably play some golf, but we're going to talk about your life in golf and your life in the NBA as well. You might recognize my colleague here and good friend Casey Bannon on the screen, because I don't know if it came through when we did meet. We had a chance encounter at the bridge, which was really fun, and is going to be the bridge is going to pop up in some of our editorial content in the Golfers Journal. Don't want to talk too much about that yet, but you're a member at the bridge, so we want to talk about your golf life, your NBA life. Casey and myself happen to be there working on something, and it turns out you were having breakfast there, and you are Casey's number one favorite athlete basketball player in the world. So if he does get any words out in this podcast, I said he has to come on. I usually do this by myself, but Casey had to come on this one. So we'll see if he is able to speak. You'll see he is wearing his Orlando Magic starter jacket, I believe. And I don't think he wears that every day.
I just noticed that, which is crazy. I just noticed that. That is elite. That is elite.
Yeah, I'm sorry if it brings up any sort of PTSD or anything. I just thought it was a nice tribute. And it's a pleasure to be in your company. I will say that no one has ever given Tom Coyne a run for the elite logo combination. But this is a pretty strong one too you've got going on.
Troubadour and Craig is strong.
I have become just I'm obviously obsessed with golf, but with gear, and I've had to like sort of dial back. So I typically just buy like the pop out ball markers, where the little coin pops out. So I'll get a few of those at every course I play, give 2 to my kids, keep 1 for myself. Cause you start playing a lot, and every time you go in a club shop you don't need, a pro shop, you don't need to buy 15 different items. But I'm a logo whore I'm a logo whore. This is a muted. I mean, they're both great tracks, but this is a muted logo display.
Oh, you're the logo guy? Got the belt, shirt, quarter zip hat. No, dude, trust me, I've been there. Well, it's the only time and it's obnoxious too, because it's usually someplace like kind of fancy, because that's when you do your most, at least that's when I do most of my shopping. If I get the chance invited, if I go to Oakmont, I go crazy. And, so then I walk out the next day and I've got like Oakmont from head. I'm just like, oh, I look like such an ass. But it is what it is. Casey, just to bring this up, since you have the Orlando Magic on there, you told me this great story after we met JJ that morning about a birthday trip. Do you want to tell us about that? A very special, about your best birthday ever? Just to embarrass, we'll just get this off the top, embarrass you.
Yeah. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. It's one of the sadder birthday gifts I think of all time. But I was living in Northern Virginia, and I wanted to see you play in your rookie year in Orlando, and I couldn't get tickets to the Wizards game. So my mother was forced to buy a 3-game package deal for the Orlando Magic, just to get the tickets for whatever reason. I think they were selling 3 games, 5 games, 7 games. So I went and saw you against the Bobcats and was up there in the 300 level. But that's really the story. I don't know what more Tom wanted from me other than I went to Orlando for you. So I want you to know that.
I mean, if it was my rookie year, did I even play?
You got some burn there. Okay. I think end of second quarter, and then I think like maybe the last 6 or 7 minutes. But I will say the gym erupted, and any time that you came off a screen. So I wasn't the only one.
I think it's awesome. Gym erupted in booze. I think the gym erupted in booze. The Wizards fans were also there was a strong correlation between Wizards fans and Maryland fans. You know what I mean? So it was not well liked in that part of the country.
Oh, we want to get to that. No, Casey, I just like that story. I think that for you to go from Virginia down to Florida to see someone play some hoops, I think that just speaks to your appreciation of JJ the basketball player. But we're going to talk about JJ the golfer as well. So, but I definitely sympathize. I was just thinking about the logo thing, and my wife has a very my closet is now like a nightclub. Like if I bring a shirt in, one has to go out. Like it's a one in, one out thing. Like I can't. It's gotten so bad. If I come home with a hat or whatever, one has to leave the house. So I really have to think long and hard about the logos that I'm getting. Great logos at the bridge. And you've been playing a lot of cool places, and you're playing a lot of cool golf, but you haven't been playing that long.
No, that's correct.
When did you get into it?
So when I moved to Orlando my rookie year, I lived on a just Central Florida golf development. Keens Point. It was a Jack Nicklaus course.
Keens Point. I know that place.
Fairly run of the mill. And I played a little bit down there, but it wasn't really a thing. When I moved to Austin in 2013, I tried to get membership at Austin Country Club. There was like a 4-year wait list. So the next summer I joined Spanish Oaks, which is a fun place.
Yeah.
And I played like 20 rounds that summer, but then my son was born in 2014, my oldest. So I went a long time without play. I went about 6 years without playing a round of golf. I took my sticks down to the bubble. I played 3 rounds prior to game starting because it was the only thing we could really do to get out of the hotel room. And I was like, you know what? I knew I was going into my last year. So I was like, I'm probably going to retire after this season. Like, this should be something that I can get into. And I didn't realize I was going to become so obsessed. And so when my last season ended, which was June of 21, I started taking lessons and just dove right in. And yeah, the last year and 5 months or 6 months, however long it's been, I've been obsessed to the detriment of my marriage, to the detriment of my working out. It's like, if I have a spare hour, do I want to go work out, or do I want to go hit balls at Chelsea Piers? I pick Chelsea Piers.
And it's a good choice because family, health, those things will come back, but you only have so long to golf. I understand that very well. So when you say obsessed, so how much are you playing? And where's your game?
Yeah, so I had put a few scores from the prior 12 months into the Gin app when I started last June. I was a 21, I think, handicap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a 10 something right now. I think a 10-9.
Damn.
I think I'm a 10-9 right now. I haven't broken 80 yet.
Drop.
I've shot 83 3 times. And I think I shot 83 at the bridge once. Shot it at Old Hollywood in
Mm-hmm.
Jersey. That was a great round. But so yeah, I'm still improving. But yeah, when I say obsessed, it is like, I tell this story all the time, but when I was a kid, my mom used to come in my bedroom in the middle of the day, and I'd be laying in my bed with my hands behind my head. And she's like, "What are you thinking about?" And I'd be like, "I'm thinking about basketball moves. I'm thinking about moves on the court." I've always been a visual person. And so now it's like the majority of my thoughts, outside of, the well-being of my kids and my wife, is my golf swing and, shallowing the club and turning the hips. It's like, it's ridiculous. And I used to, as a basketball player, you'd dribble, you'd pantomime, you'd dribble, and you'd fake shoot. And now I'm at like dinner parties, and I'm like working on keeping that right elbow, close to my body. It's like, it's the worst. It's the worst.
It does have you. It's no.
Yeah.
And Casey and I can certainly relate. And that's the beauty of it. And that's certainly obsession. And that's a great, dude, that's 11 strokes off your handicap pretty quickly. And an 83 at the bridge, by the way, is probably like a 75 anywhere else. That's pretty good playing, man.
Yeah, no, it's getting better. It's getting better. It was weird because that last season I had gotten a little taste of golf. So I played a few times in the bubble. We had the bubble went through mid to late October, and we had a really quick turnaround. And so I wasn't a member anywhere. So I played the bridge a couple times and I played Sabonic and I was like, I got to join somewhere. So I had a friend who, reached out to Bob and we had a couple conversations and I'm in New Orleans, in the middle of the season. And Bob sends me an email. It's like, you're in. I'm like, oh, this is great. But
Yeah.
at that time we weren't vaccinated. So we couldn't leave our hotel rooms. We couldn't leave our apartments at home. So I had this like waiting period of like, what do I do? And I was alone, by the way. My family was in Brooklyn. I was in New Orleans and Dallas my last year. And I would say 90% of my downtime in my apartment or hotel room watching golf content on YouTube. Like
Yeah.
that's the obsession started even before I really started playing. It was, I started like memorizing which architects did which courses. And I would watch
Really?
like flyover videos. I mean, yeah, it's just bad, man. It's bad.
No, it's good. We like, dude, welcome. That's going, but you can go down. I know that rabbit hole as well, going on and watching so many videos and swing tips and do this and do that. But it seems like that's helped you improve. I mean, what's the thing that's helped you the most? I mean, you have great teaching pros at the bridge, but I mean, anyone listening would say, "Man, you got 10 strokes better in a relatively short period of time." Granted, you're a pretty good athlete, as we know. What's been the most useful for you in actually in getting so much better?
Um, there's definitely a few things because, as you guys know, it's not ever one thing in golf. So I've never had any instruction or advice with putting. I think as a shooter and that visual component, like you just sort of have a natural feel. And I certainly, like anybody else, have bad putting days. That's the one part of my game that's fairly consistent. But similar to basketball, I always thought to myself, to be a great shooter, you need three things. You need some semblance of good form. You need to repeat that form over and over, reps, practice, whatever. And then from those two things, you get confidence. And so by playing a lot, and this summer in particular, I spent a lot of time at the driving range, short game area, whatnot. I I felt more confident. And golf is such a mental game, more so than anything else, because it's such a static sport, and you have so much time. That walk from your tee shot to hopefully the fairway, sometimes not the fairway, but that walk, hey, you can be in your own head a little bit. Maybe you hit a bad chip shot, you're in your head again. So the mental side of that, a lot of the confidence that you can get when you step on the tee or you walk up to a putting green, it just all comes from repetition. And the form part, look, it's like I think most people's swings are a work in progress. And so I've worked with Mike Sweeney at the bridge. I worked with Eden Foster at Maidstone.
Mm.
Those guys have been a big help for me.
You speak with a wisdom beyond your years in golf, my friend. No, I love this. I love what you're talking about because I'm very interested in thinking about talking to you today. What are the crossovers between your basketball point of view and golf? So I immediately thought, okay, are you a good putter? Because you were a great shooter. Folks don't know you're one of the great 3-point shooters in college and NBA. Um, and is there something about that? Just putting the ball in the hole. They're so different. But is there any crossover? Like great free
I would,
throw
s-
shooter as
yeah,
well, right? So if you can
I would,
make that many free throws, are you a great short putter?
right. I think the most similar uh, thing that can happen on a basketball court to something that happens on a golf course is a free throw.
Yeah,
Basketball is very dynamic. There's 10 moving bodies at all times. The ball's passed to you. I don't know if I'm catching it on the seams or if I'm catching it off the seams.
right.
Again, there's a lie in golf. There's a variance right there. You might have a good lie, you may have a bad lie, but you're not thinking. Basketball, I never felt like I was a head case, and I can feel that way on a golf course. So the static nature of a free throw, everything stops, everybody's quiet for a second, unless you're on
Yeah.
the road at the end of a game, but everybody's fairly quiet for a second. Everybody else on the team is watching you. And that's every shot in golf. You're standing over the ball. and that's the thing Eden said to me. We worked on some stuff with my swing tempo because he thought I had too slow of a backswing. But he was like, be athletic. And that's basketball, right? Being athletic. And so, and then, by the way, that was like 3 days before I went and shot an 83 at Hollywood. Like it's like that was my mantra the whole day: just be athletic, hit the ball. I kept finding the slot on all my iron shots and wedges, and it was as good as I can strike a golf ball. But that's the similarity to me, is the static nature. The second similarity is muscle memory. And there's just the biomechanics. There's a muscle sequencing to shooting a basketball that is required, and there's a sequencing in the golf swing. And again, I shot millions of basketball shots. I've probably shot a couple thousand golf shots. I've got a long way to go with that. But when you're in that flow and that rhythm with your golf swing, it feels like a great jump shot. It just feels the same way. Steph,
Wow.
I just had Steph on the pod last week. We recorded about a week and a half ago in Houston. And at the end, I kind of tried to, it's Steph. We got to talk basketball. What I really wanted to talk to him was his golf game.
Yeah.
And we talked about this. I think as shooters, you find the muscle memory, you find the visualization, you find the flow state. And when things are going really well, it feels like you can't miss on the basketball court. And on the golf course, when all those things are aligned, it feels like every time you step over the ball, you're going to hit a good shot. And it's really hard to find that, especially as a 10 handicap. It's really hard. But when you do, it's like, dude, I can play golf, and that's a great feeling.
Wow. Yeah. Casey had a good question about that he wanted to ask you about, when you are feeling like you can't miss.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, like, what you would consider your the peak of that feeling, right? Because obviously you went through, you were in the zone quite often, for a long time. But is there a time in particular, a game or a moment where you were just, it was just different? Is there one that sticks with you from your career?
Yeah, it's really weird, but it was the Texas game my senior year. That was the first time I really remember feeling a certain way. And again, it goes back to visualization. I remember the night before, or maybe it was Thursday night, we played Saturday afternoon in New Jersey at the Meadowlands. Either Thursday night or Friday night, the night before, I'd watched Adam Morrison play. And he had a great game and he was shooting the ball well. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, his shot pocket is really right of his head. And I thought to myself in warmups that day, I'm going to go out and I'm just going to feel like it's a feel. It's the same thing with a golf swing, right? The feel. Your practice swings a lot of times, right? You're exaggerating a feel. So I went into warmups that day and I was like, I'm going to exaggerate what it feels like to just move that shot pocket a little bit over. And I remember shooting the ball, my pregame shooting, and then we come out for warmups and I'm shooting again. I'm just like, oh my God, this feels incredible. And I said to the ball boy, I was like, I think I'm going to drop 40 tonight. I had 41, and it's so funny because in basketball, and I think this way in golf as well. Like, I could have a good shooting game. And be 5 for 11. To me, I wasn't as concerned with results as I was the feel. I could have a bad, I could have a bad shooting game and shoot 5 for 11. I had a good shooting game and shoot 7 for 12. And I'm like, it didn't feel right tonight. I need to go back tomorrow morning and work on that feel. And so I had some of my best shooting games. Guess what? I missed 10 or 11 shots, but they all felt great. That Texas game, I was 13 of 24 from the field. It wasn't like I was 18 for 18. It was 13 of 24. I missed 11 shots, but they all felt pretty damn good.
How about that? JJ Redick's first swing thought came from Adam Morrison.
The genesis. There you go.
But that is a very golf thing, right? Like the idea that you can go out and shoot a really good number, but you can feel like you're faking it around the golf course, right? And then you can have days where the score just doesn't align, but the club is in the slot, and it's sort of distancing yourself from the outcome, which is important.
I was recently I think you can even have it on a hole, right? Not even yeah, right, every shot is, sometimes you may only need one good shot to score well on a hole. Sometimes you may need two depending on a tee shot or your approach shot, but I was playing 2 weeks ago in San Francisco, and I couldn't have hit my drive more right, and they were like, "No, no, no, you're gonna be fine. There's a little opening there to get up on the green." And I had this tree branch in front of me, and I'm like, "All right, the bunker's on the right. It's the pin is protected by these bunkers on the right." It was like a back right pin placement. I'm like, "But I've got to hit a draw, so I've got to essentially hit this perfect shot." I'm in my head. I don't feel in the flow state, and I skull fuck one down the hill through the fairway. It hits the slope, and it rolls up to 8 feet in front of the pin, and I two putt for par. I didn't walk away from that hole feeling good about myself. I felt awful. I felt like I couldn't play golf, but the result was a par.
Can you tell us where you were in San Francisco?
I was at Cal Club.
Yes, you were. Fist bump from Casey.
Yeah,
A favorite of us at the Golfers Journal. That's a great spot, isn't it?
it's a favorite of mine. That place is special.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're playing some special places. You belong to a special place. Now, I'm interested. So, your mentality as a shooter, right? In basketball, you want the last shot. Now, do you feel, are you in a place in golf where you want to, I guess, is there an equivalent in golf? I guess if you're on a scramble team, I want to hit that putt, but do you look forward to the moment? Do you feel that competitive drive carrying over, especially maybe as someone who's, now you're recently retired from from professional basketball. Is golf sort of scratching that competitive itch for you?
Yeah, I've seen mental health professionals since my time at Duke, and I have been seeing a therapist slash performance coach for the last 3.5 years. We talk intermittently. It's not like a regular weekly thing, but we talk intermittently. And he really helped me let go of that 1% and be able to say, I am retired. I mean, I was 99% of the way there for close to a year, but it was so hard to let go. And he helped me through that process. And our next session, we kind of reflected and we kind of looked forward. And one of the exercises that we did, we said, what is it about your previous thing that you want in the next thing?
Hmm.
And it came down to performance anxiety. I love that feeling. I love that sort of nervousness. I like the high you get from after performing. It was competition, and it was collaboration. And so for me, golf is the ultimate competitive sport. I can go play around. I can go walk at the bridge, put my bag on the back of my back, go walk around for 2.5, 3 hours. I'm competing against the course. I'm competing against myself. I'm competing against my handicap. I'm doing all those things. I can go set up a game with my buddies, and we can have 2v2. We can play a Nassau closeout. I'm competing, and in golf, it's no different than basketball. Like I want to feel like I'm having an impact on winning. If it comes down to a match on 18 and let's say I've got a stroke, like I'm like, all right, I'm going to par this net birdie and I'm going to win the match for us. If it comes down to a putt, I want that putt. I want that action. I want it. It also, I mean, a lot of it just stems from having just a belief in self and a little bit of irrational confidence. Like we all sort of need that a little bit, especially on the golf course.
Absolutely. Is it tough going? Do you still play any basketball? Or are you? Is it one of those things you have to walk away from and say, "All right, I'm not gonna." Do you still run
Yeah,
with folks?
as a player, I would always say to myself, "There's no way I'm ever playing. I'm not going to go play pickup at the YMCA
Right.
when I'm done playing." And that's been true. I will play with my kids. I will shoot around with them. I
Yeah.
put them through drills. I enjoy doing that. But I the basketball career that I had was very unexpected to me. I didn't think I would have the success I had at Duke. I didn't think I would have a 15-year NBA career. The reason I did was because I had to put so much into it. I wouldn't have survived. And so by the end of it, I was physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausted. And I mentioned those three things. Like, I didn't mention shooting a basketball. That's not what I miss. I miss being part of a team. I miss performing in front of 20,000 people. I miss competing against the best at something in the world. That's what I miss. I miss those feelings. I had enough dopamine hits in my life seeing the ball go through the basket. I don't really need that anymore. I can get the dopamine hits on the golf course, and it's way
For
less
sure.
taxing on my body.
Yeah, dude, it would be cool to show up at the YMCA though and try and want to run with fools. It'd be like that Charles Barkley commercial. I'll take Redick. Yeah.
I get asked by my friends in Brooklyn. They'll like shoot me texts and be like, "Hey, dude, we're down a man Wednesday night. Can you come play
Yeah,
with us
right.
in our league, in our men's league?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good.
Oh, dude,
Maybe
yeah,
one
pretty
day.
cool.
Maybe one day. I don't know. Maybe one day."
But then you go from I want to get into your basketball a little bit more, but going from someone who is at the height of your game, golf is so humbling. Did you initially now it's gotten its teeth into you, so it doesn't matter, but initially is there I always wonder this about world-class athletes that turn to golf. It's like, man, um is it tough being humbled once you're used to excelling on such an elite level?
Yeah, I would say my first venture into golf, the few rounds I played in Orlando, the summer and a half that I got to hit, a few courses in Austin, that was really humbling. It was, I never, up until I joined the bridge, I'd never gone to a driving range to hit balls. I rarely hit balls before a round. I would just show up to the first tee and let's go whack it around for
Yeah.
4.5 hours or however long it took. But that was really humbling because I was like, this seems like, and I'd go play with guys. I'm like, this guy's not an athlete, and he'd hit it 320 yards down the middle with the baby draw, and I'm like, how is this possible? How's
Right.
this possible? It was so humbling. And when I really got sort of the bug in late 2020, early 2021, even before I had a full summer of playing, I just looked at it as a process in the same way I looked at getting better at basketball. And so there are certainly days where I get in my car after a round at the bridge and I drive the 10 or 12 minutes back to my house and I'm like, man, I really suck. And maybe this isn't going to be a thing where I can become like a low handicap. But at no point in time have I said to myself, nah, this is something I don't want to do anymore.
Right.
Like, it's there's been a sort of a variation between these two different golf experiences that I've had.
I think you're on the trajectory to a very low handicap, and you got the hand-eye coordination going for you, and that really cannot be. You can't teach that, and it can't be underestimated for sure. I mean, and so speaking of your career, 15 years you said in the NBA. What was your favorite team to play for, and why was it the Philadelphia 76ers?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
76ers.
I look at
Casey's shaking his head.
I
Trust the
look at
process.
I look at 15 years, and I probably had 4 really special groups. I would say my first year in Philly, we weren't projected to win more than I think 33 games or 34 games, something like that.
That was a cool team.
We won 16 in a row to end the regular season. We got to the second round of the playoffs. We were 52-30. We were actually, I think, 14-18 on going into the Christmas Day game. We won that in New York and went 37-12 the rest of the way to win 52 games. That was a special group. My first 2 years with the Clippers, those were special groups. And then those Orlando teams, 09, 2010, those were special groups. So I guess 5. 5 years, 5 times in 15. But it's weird, oh shit. Motherfucker.
You're good.
You're gonna have to edit this. My screen. Was getting a phone call and my screen for some reason went away. Let me just find this.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, there you are. There you are. I put this on Do Not Disturb. That's not to say I didn't enjoy the other 11 or 10 or 11 years. But, you know, there's basketball is so much built on fit and timing, not just on the court, but off the court. And even though I didn't win a championship in any of those years, of course, we of course made the finals in '09, but it's like those years I look back on and they were magical. There
Yeah.
was just something very magical about going through a season with those guys, the staff, the training staff, the coach. It was just beautiful. And I look back at my career, I'm not like looking back at like, oh man, I can't believe I ended up in this place for 2 months. Like I enjoyed every group I was with. I really did. It's just that some of them were just so functional. The group dynamic just worked so well that it's hard not to feel a certain sense of nostalgia and love for those groups.
Well, you played on some special groups in college as well. All-time leading scorer at Duke. Duke, yeah. So, the
Why do people? Why?
that's what I want to get
Why?
into. Like, why?
Why do you hate Duke? Why do you have a negative
Because
attitude
it's
towards
Duke. I think for like my generation, a lot of it comes from the Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley, holier than thou, better than you, perfect. I don't know, that there was something about that just was kind of like icky, and frankly, the resentment because they were very good, and they seem to do it and be better, and will do it in a better way. Hey, I went to Notre Dame, and I think a lot of people hate Notre Dame for putting off that same vibe of that holier than thou, and I feel like maybe Duke does that in basketball. So I don't know, Casey, what are your feelings on Duke?
Well, I love Duke, but there are really only two options. So I fall into the love category. I
Right.
am glad that you're self-aware enough to point out that you went to Notre Dame, which I think
I know.
if you look up holier than thou in the dictionaries, a golden helmet pops up.
That's what
But yeah,
Notre Dame
there's
actually means in French. It's holier
look
than thou.
when you're a kid in the early 2000s and love playing ball and prefer to stay as far away from the paint as possible, you know, and you don't have a college team that you're attached to, there's only one home for you, you know. So
Yeah.
it's very much in the Yankees, I guess, genre. It's a national brand, and I think that I've yet to hear a compelling case as to why people hate Duke. For example, you say it's because of Duke. It's because of Christian Laettner. You know, there's never really been any compelling argument as to why, other than those things.
Yeah, I hear you, but I'm sure JD, you're obviously aware of it, and you felt it. You alluded to the Maryland fans.
Yeah.
What's the story with them?
No, I definitely felt it. Part of the reason I had to go to therapy.
No,
No,
I hear you.
Maryland fans, they were probably more crass than other student sections, although there were other student sections that were crass at times. But I remember going to Duke, lifelong dream fulfilled, and I had wanted to go to Duke because of Christian Laettner, because he makes that shot against Kentucky to beat them in Philadelphia,
I know.
to go to the Final Four. They end up repeating as champions. And I turned to my parents when he made that shot. I said, "I'm going to play for Duke someday." Keep in mind, at that point in time, I had yet to play organized basketball. So it was like a lifelong dream. And then my freshman year starts. It's much harder than I anticipated. And then we go for our first real road game. It's at Clemson. We come out for warm-ups, and the student section's out there, and just everyone is directing their animosity of Duke, their hatred of Duke. They're just directing it at me. And that went on throughout my freshman year. And by halfway through my sophomore year, I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. And I actually wanted to quit. I called my sisters over to campus. They live in Raleigh. They called them over to campus in December, right before Christmas break. And I was like, I think I'm done. I just want to go be a
Really?
student, take classes, be a normal human. I mean, we're all normal, but as a 19-year-old, I didn't have that perspective. And yeah, they talked me out of it. Thank God they did. Didn't mean
Yeah.
the rest of my sophomore year went well. It got worse and worse. I hit rock bottom. Coach K and the coaching staff at Duke and some wonderful people at Duke helped me out of it. And that summer in between my sophomore and junior year, I just sort of rededicated myself, but I also got even more disciplined. I still have this sheet. Uh, it's got my wake up time, my check in time, my class time. It's got my full workout schedule. When I eat my meals, I was required to carry a jug of water around campus all day. It was like 225 at the end of my sophomore year. I went into the first week of practice at 192 my junior year, won every conditioning drill, and got National Player of the Year, got ACC Player of the Year. Our team sort of overachieved that year. We had like 7 scholarship players, and we ended up with the number 1 seed, lost to Michigan State in the Sweet 16. But that set the precedent for how I went about the rest of my basketball career. And if it wasn't for my experience at Duke, if I'd gone to another place, I'm not sure that I would have had a 15-year career. It wasn't just playing for Coach K and getting to take a bunch of shots my junior and senior year. No, it was like going through that trial. It helped mature me, and it gave me a foundation of work, which translated to the rest of my life.
Wow.
So no, I don't personally hate Duke.
No, Duke is a damn. So talk about that coming. I mean, for people that feel like they've hit rock bottom or have had enough of hearing about what so and so thinks of them. What's that process? How do you come out of it? You work your way out of it? It sounds like there was a process and a carrying around. Tell us about that process.
Yeah, there was a stage of rebellion, a stage of acting like a frat kid off the court, acting like an asshole on the court. It was a little bit of that fight or flight where so many people were like, I'm naturally, I don't know what the word is. I'm naturally probably an asshole in the sense that I'm sarcastic and, I kind of just generally speak my mind. And I bring energy to a locker room. I bring energy to the court. Like I've always been that way, even as a freshman in high school. And I remember we're playing at one of our rivals. I hit 3 threes. My first game playing varsity, hit 3 threes in the first minute and a half. And I hit the third one in front of the bench. And I turned to the coach and I was like, who is guarding me tonight? And like, I've always been that way. I can't help it. But I had to sort of go through therapy and get comfortable with myself. And my ego structure at 18, 19 years old, with all this stuff being directed at me, fans from Maryland getting my phone number, calling me 30 times a night, telling me I'm the Antichrist, telling me terrible things about my family and what they're going to do to my sisters. Like, I was just like, I'm not prepared for this. And so eventually, that rebellion on and off the court, it caught up to me. And by the end of my sophomore year, I was out of shape, overweight. We lost in the Final Four. Coach K told me the reason we lost and the reason we weren't NBA or national champions was because I wasn't worthy to be a champion. That made it worse. And then so for like a month or so, I just got off the grid. And I remember sophomore year, or this is summer school had started now after sophomore year, and I hadn't gotten to class all semester, so I had an incomplete in this history class. And I told my parents I was going to finish it at Duke. I told Duke I was going to finish it back in Roanoke, and I was literally just hanging out at a buddy's apartment. And I'd wake up at noon, go get a burrito, watch some movies, party, go to bed at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I did that for 2 weeks. And I woke up one morning, there's banging on the door, and I go downstairs and it's Coach Collins and Coach Wojo. And I had such a sense of relief. I was like, oh man, they're here to save me from this spiral. They're here to save me. And they took me to Coach K's office, and he was like, look, we're going to get you the help you need. I saw a psychiatrist that summer. I saw a therapist who I continued to use, the same person until I graduated. And Coach K put me on this plan that I mentioned, hourly plan. They didn't let me play USA basketball that summer. They're like, no, we're gonna wrap our arms around you, and we're gonna get you right. And so, like, there's an element there of needing someone to help you out. And that was the first time in my life that I was like, oh, I need someone to help me, right? I was self-driven, self-motivated. I didn't need AAU coaches to yell at me. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm going to go hard. I'm going to play hard. I'm going to compete. You don't need to do all that. I'm good. And that was the first time I was like, I need help, and I need to figure out what's going on in my brain. And so between coach and my mental health professionals, like they got me into a great place. That's not to say like the rest of my career was some straight linear trajectory towards 15 years. Like I mentioned I didn't play my rookie year. My sophomore year I played less. I had major shooting slumps. Even the time, my second year in Philly, it was a weird group, personality wise. It was a lot of like moving parts, and by the end of the season, it was just like so tense. And I remember having a panic attack in warmups in Houston. I shot 1 for 10 that night, and I got home and I just was like, I can't make a shot. I was like distraught with my wife. Um, and so, yeah, but I had the tools then to like
Hmm.
deal with this. I had the experience
Right.
to deal with this. So like that period of time in your life, I mean, I'm fortunate that I had it at 19. Like it helped shape me.
Wow. Thank you. I mean, that's going to help people listening as well, and that help getting help at that age, and I love talking about how still having those tools to use, because right, life doesn't, it's not all rainbows after
Yeah.
after you
Yeah.
get you get some help. Life still shows up, but if you have some tools for how to meet it, um that's pretty fantastic. The only thing I don't like about that, now I think I like Coach K. You've ruined that for one of my favorite villains in sports.
Real
That's
quick, I have to
really,
tell
really
real
cool.
quick story is just that he obviously retired at the end of last season, and I went back to Raleigh this weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, to see my three sisters and my parents and my nieces and nephews. And I had some free time Saturday afternoon, so I had texted him earlier in the week, and I was like, "Hey, cool if I stop by your house." So I drove 35 minutes from my parents' house, and just sat in his living room with his wife for like an hour and a half, and just caught up. And it was like the best hour and a half I've spent in a long time. I mean, he's just the best. And it's so weird to me because there are a lot of things that are said about him and his greatness and the person he is and the character and the coach that he is. And there are things he probably wishes he had done differently. And so people always like to point to that stuff. But I will say everything that has been said about him in a positive manner, they're all true and then some. And I have the greatest dad in the world. And Tom, I know you wrote about this. I mentioned this to you when I saw you, that relationship with your father,
Mhm.
how that was sort of narrated throughout a course called America was so beautiful. And I had that same just attachment and love for my dad. And look, my dad's one, coaches too. Like in terms of a influential figure in my life, he's the man.
That's fantastic. Now I really like him. That's awesome. Does he play golf? And or what's he doing now? I guess he's got to learn. Are you gonna teach him to play golf?
Well, I think the problem with, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing for a golf swing, but he's got two artificial hips, two artificial knees, and potentially an artificial ankle at some point. So
Ah,
he may have a hard time. Coach Collins, Doug Collins' son, Coach Collins grew up playing and is a good golfer. He's like a 4 or 5 handicap, and I know Wojo has played a little bit. Johnny Dawkins played as well. But Coach, I don't even know if he ever even tried to get into it.
that's busy guy.
Yeah, so he's
Pretty
got a lot on his
busy.
plate.
Yeah, running around recruiting folks like yourself. Um, which does bring me to a question. There are now. It seems, I don't know. It seems like in the last 10 years, maybe because of Steph Curry and others, there's like a lot of more. It seems like more basketball players are playing golf. Do any come to mind that you'd want on your team in a money match? Are there any
I mean,
are there any you'd like to play against?
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, I think it'd be if I had to like build out a foursome, I would put Steph in there. I would put Kyle Lowry in there
Huh.
because I like talking shit on a golf course, and Kyle, like me, is a sarcastic prick. Um, and I would probably my fourth would be tough, but I'd I'd probably choose Iguodala.
Iggy.
Yeah, Iguodala. Just because I think it'd be fun to spend 4.5 hours with him and Steph on a golf course and hear some of the stories from this Warriors dynasty, this Warriors run over the last 8 years that
Huh.
maybe you wouldn't hear publicly. I think that would be super interesting. And I'll take Steph on my team. You know, I'll take the best golfer of the bunch. I'll take him on my team.
Giving a lot of shots though. But
Yeah,
no,
he's
that's
giving a lot of
cool.
shots to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Casey, you had a question.
I have lots of questions. Just on that
I
Steph
know you do.
topic, just on the Steph thing, there's a weird sort of duality with when you came into the league and you're playing with Dwight Howard, who at the time was sort of like the prototypical star, right? And there were some questions as to how your skill set fit in that league at that time. When you play golf with Steph or talk with Steph, does Steph ever bring out the trash talk card that I maybe lengthened your career and made you a whole lot of money?
Mhm.
It's a good question. I I actually think I started my peak before he changed the game.
Mm.
I think he changed the game once Kerr got there. And he had had some big games before, but when you look at sort of his volume on threes, like it exploded once he got with Kerr. I I was in Orlando. Stan viewed me as a bench player. He didn't view me as a full time starter. So I went to Doc and the Clippers in 13-14, and that was the first time. Like, all right, we're going to run plays for you. We're going to run you off screens. We're going to use your movement. I had done a little bit of that my previous year. Stan had gotten fired, and Jacques Vaughn had come into Orlando. Jacques came to me and said, "Hey, I want you to be our Manu Ginobili off the bench. When you're in, we're going to run plays for you." But it was the first time. That was the first time really that I got plays called for me. But our offense was a little different. You know, it was a lot of passing and cutting. So I got back cuts a lot. We used our bigs as passers out of the high post. I went to Doc. It was like, we're just going to run you off screens. You shoot as much as you want. And Chris empowered me. Blake empowered me. DJ empowered me. So I, I don't know that Steph lengthened my career. I think this whole like you have to give credit to Morey too and the analytics movement.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it when I came in the league, like there weren't a lot of high volume shooters, and even the Phoenix Suns teams that were so good that were the 7 seconds or less, their pace of play would be close to last in the league now. Like it is just
Wow.
it's like how can we create a good shot and just take the shot? And a lot of times that's just through spacing, dribble penetration, drive and kick, using the threat of a three-pointer to create layups. The Warriors do that better than anybody. They use Steph off the ball. His threat of just catching and shooting allows Wiggins to back cut, allows Draymond to find people from the high post. So yeah, Steph, I mean, we talked about this with him at the end of our interview with him, but he changed the game. He
Mhm.
did. He changed the game. I watched my son play in his leagues, and literally every kid after every shot, patting their chest, pointing to the sky, doing the shimmy, doing the too small, doing the rock the baby, um, doing the night night. Like I watched, they're shooting drills in practice. When they win, they go night night to the other groups. I'm like, you
Oh, dude.
guys are all sickos. Stay off YouTube.
On the topic of changing the game, I do think you must be credited with starting this sort of movement among players, sort of taking control of their own media, right? And so I think you were the first active NBA player to do a
Yeah.
podcast in season. I'm curious what were you seeing in media that led you to sort of go out a limb and do that?
I was curious about media. I wasn't looking at it through the lens I look at it through now, where I'm sort of surveying the landscape. Social media was fairly new at the time as well. Um, I wasn't even aware that there was something called NBA Twitter, which is basically like all the, all the Twitter accounts that talk about and tweet about and write about the NBA. It's like this whole community. I wasn't aware of that till we kidnapped DeAndre Jordan in 2015 and made him re-sign with us. That day was crazy. But so I wasn't, and that it was that following season that I started my podcast. I wasn't really thinking about that way. I was just curious, like, oh, this maybe, media may be something I want to do when I'm done playing. Woj asked me to do a pod, and so I did the podcast, and I had no experience. I had never listened to a podcast. I just kind of went and did it blind, and the novelty of it initially, I think, is what made it hit a little bit, because it was the first time that people had heard players talking about this and heard them talking in a more comfortable manner than they do, in traditional media. So I'd like to think I was a trendsetter, but it wasn't my, ambition or my goal or my thought process at the time to start a trend of athletes, being able to control their narrative and start podcasts or YouTube channels. I just kind of stumbled into it.
Have you discovered golf Twitter yet?
I dabble in golf Twitter. Yeah.
What are your thoughts so far?
It was interesting because I got into golf and started following some accounts at the same time that the Live Tour was sort of getting off the ground. So a lot of what I see on golf Twitter is related to that. Different memes and whatnot. Instagram in particular has been entertaining for me. I think there's some really great meme accounts out there. And I'll comment on them, I'll get involved. I'll get involved a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it was going back to what I was talking about at the beginning with just like the obsession with golf. I would say the majority of the books I read right now are golf related. The majority of videos I watch on YouTube are golf related. The engagement on social media, if it's not podcast or NBA related, it's golf related. Yeah, it's a big part of my life.
Amen. And on that note, Casey, do you want to? Casey had a couple rapid fire questions for you if you wanted to share those with.
Yeah,
JJ. First of all, can I ask a question? I forgot to ask. Name origins came up on another pod, and people were interested. Are your first two initials JJ?
No. My name is Jonathan Clay. There is no second J.
That's what I thought.
My dad and mom were hippies. My dad was a potter, and my mom was a sculptor. So they named me Clay because my dad made pottery out of clay. And I have older twin sisters. And like any 4-year-old identical twin sisters, 5-year-old identical twin sisters, they said everything at the same time. So people would ask what my name was. They tried to get my attention, and it always came out JJ. So I've been JJ. I mean, my earliest memories are at 3 years old. I was JJ then. I've always been JJ.
Always JJ. That's awesome. That's a great story. Yeah. Casey, did I take one of your rapid fire questions from you?
You did not.
Okay.
JJ, I hope I came up with this game all on my own. Okay. I noticed, you are quickly becoming one of the best take formulators in media. People look forward to your takes. I think you're very good at it. And I know that some of the platforms and shows that you're on may put you in some different positions, may force you to go outside your comfort zone. So this is a game. I'm gonna give you a name or a phrase, and I just want you to just tell me what comes to mind. I don't think anyone else has played this game before, and I call it First Take. Okay.
Okay.
So first one is, I'll start softball. The first one is Rory McIlroy.
Oh, Rory McIlroy. I think right now, I think he has the best swing in golf. I'm jealous of his hip mobility. I'm jealous of that. Yeah.
Me too. What about Greg Norman?
I'm sorry, but the first thing that comes to mind is big cock.
I know.
I can't help it. You know, we've all seen the picture. We've all seen the picture.
I just don't know how that take is going to hold up on ESPN.
I don't know how comfortable your listeners and viewers are with vulgarity. By the way, we are recording this. Tiger gave a great press conference today, and I thought it was really interesting. Tiger said Greg's got to go. That's the first thing for there to be some sort of resolution and compromise here between PGA and Live. I know a number of other players have sort of echoed that, but never someone as explicitly and as with such a big following as Tiger. I thought that was super interesting.
Did he say it was because of his phallus? Didn't that come up? No.
Well, I mean, we can say, you know, I should have said dick because he's a dick, right? He's a dick and he's got a big dick. All right.
There we are.
So that's the official Live take. I like it. This is just a personal curiosity of mine. 2006 LSU men's basketball.
You know, here's my take. They had a great game plan. I'm going to give a take in a second, but they had a great game plan. They also had some really good individual defenders. Garrett Temple, in particular, gave me a lot of problems. He's way bigger than me. He's got a better wingspan than me. He really bothered my shot. The times I did drive by him, I've got Big Baby, I've got Tyrus Thomas back there. They're contesting me at the rim. Like, it was that team in terms of like the makeup of our team and the makeup of their team. It was a bad matchup for us. It was a bad matchup for me. I want to say one thing though, and I've you know, maybe I've never said this publicly, but I want to say, like, I get such a bad rap from fans because if you look at the games that we lost to end our NCAA tournament runs, I always had a bad shooting game in those games, right? And my response to that is, well, no fucking shit. For us to win, I had to have a good shooting game. Like, that's just, it was built into the identity of our team. And like, there was some pressure there to have a good shooting night. Unfortunately, 3 for 18 against LSU is not going to get it done.
No. That was great. We got the exclusive. That was awesome. I wanted to know. Did going from the intimate Cameron indoor setting to the stadium, does that affect the shooting performance at all?
I never liked shooting in those domes. I mean, we played the Final Four in the Alamo Dome. We played the Sweet 16 that year in Atlanta was at the Georgia Dome. And it's just like, I remember my first game in the Roanoke Civic Center, you know, probably sat 5,000 people, but it was bigger than our gym, which sat 950 people at Cave Spring High School. I remember my first game there. We were playing George Washington Danville, which is the defending state champions in AAA in Virginia, which was our class. And we won, and I had like 32 points. I had 25 in the first half. They didn't realize that I could shoot NBA range 3, so they weren't really guarding me at 27 feet, and I was just bombing away. And my coach after the game said something about like, I was curious to see how he would shoot in a bigger arena because, he's going to have to get used to that because he's going to play a lot, in college. He was talking about play a lot in bigger arenas. I never would have expected to play in, stadiums that could hold 80,000 people. It's a totally different feel. It's a totally different sideline. Even going to, like, last year, I went as a fan to the Final Four in New Orleans, or in 2010, I went to Duke National Championship game when they beat Butler, which was at Lucas Oil Field. And as a fan, I'm like, how are these guys making shots in here? Like, it's so weird, the optics of shooting a basketball in a giant stadium.
Yeah. Okay, I just have 2 more for you. Golf course architects. Favorites, preference, taste.
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm gonna get in trouble for takes here. Look,
yes.
my favorite course, and probably 2 of my top 3 is Alistair McKenzie. But I will say this, I'm obsessed with Corin Crenshaw. I think those guys are incredible. I haven't done Bandon yet. I'm doing it this coming summer. So I'll get another taste of one of their courses there. Friars had an old sandwich,
Mm.
like in terms of playability, optics, bunkering, the greens. I, those two places are as enjoyable a round of golf as I've ever had in my life. And so I'd say Corey Crenshaw, favorite architects. There you go.
That's not a bad take. That's
100%.
a great take.
That's a great take. Great
Okay.
take.
The algorithm's gonna love you for that. That's great. Okay, the last one is, and I promise I'm done. Philadelphia sports radio.
We love JJ. We miss
This
JJ.
is great. No, so I signed with Philly in July of 2017. So I was commuting from Brooklyn. We had just moved from LA to Brooklyn. My oldest had gotten into a school, and we were prepared. I thought I was going to sign with Houston on a 4-year deal. So we were prepared. We were already looking sort of at, we were on Trulia the 3 days leading up to free agency, looking at houses in River Oaks neighborhood in Houston. Chris had just gotten traded there. So I talked to him. So I thought we were going to Houston. We were going to move the family to Houston. We were already talking, we had a less than a 1-year-old, we had a 10-month-old at the time. So the nanny was on board. We were going to all move to Houston. And I signed a 1-year deal in Philly. My kids in school, we just moved into our apartment that we just bought. And we're like, all right, well, I'm not gonna move my family for potentially 6 months. That doesn't make sense. Like we're going to start our little foundation base here or whatever. So that becomes public, which created this whole thing about how I was like commuting, and I wasn't a Philly guy. And I remember I couldn't make the drive by myself on the turnpike anymore. It was like got to December, and I was like, I'd get out of the car and I'd be like, oh my God, my hips are tight, my back's tight. So I was like, I'm going to get a driver. So I got a driver, and that driver would tell me things about what they were talking about on the radio, on Philly sports radio. And I was like, I got to be honest with you, Mark. I didn't know that sports radio still exists, but in Philadelphia, it's still a thing. Philadelphia fans are incapable of being happy, like truly happy, unless it's a championship. There's something that's very like, as a fan, there's something that's very like masochistic about that. There is. I mean, I played in LA, and it's a different environment. It's the Clippers especially. It's not like the Lakers. The Clippers, it's like Clippers win. Chris Paul has 20 and 10. Blake has 22 and 8. DJ has 15 rebounds. Yay, Clippers! JJ had a bad shooting night. Philadelphia, it's like JJ had a bad shooting night. That's the story. But wait, hold on. You're not going to talk about Joel having 40. You're not going to talk about the Sixers beating the shit out of the Magic last night. It's a weird thing. Now, I'm sounding negative. Playing in Philadelphia was the best experience I had as a player because I love that. I will take that over apathy and indifference any day of the week. There's no better place to play sports than in Philadelphia. It's the best sports town there is. That is my take.
Amen.
Damn
straight. No, I think you're right. You nailed it, JJ. And obviously, I mean, it does. Masochistic, I think, is a good way of thinking about it, because there is this almost more as a Philly fan, you almost feel more comfortable being miserable, and that's which is kind of strange. But and then there's that, we've had a few championships, and the explosion has been is just been awesome, man. But we really, and now, looking back, I mean, people really miss you. Loved you were a full effort player, and people loved that. And you were also a piece that we've never really replaced. I don't think the Sixers have. We didn't know that. We thought like the years you were here were like a bridge to like this, our legacy years of, where, and we didn't realize it was actually the high point. And it hasn't gotten any better. But in any event, JJ, you're the man. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. This has been a blast. Casey, do you have any final words, questions, or parting sentiments?
No. I hope we can play golf together one day, but that's about it.
Yeah, we have
Tom and I were trying all fall to try to make it work. We'll make it work in the spring. Thank you for having me on the pod. This has been a lot of fun. Appreciate you guys, and I look forward to teeing it up in Philadelphia sometime soon.